Everyone. So this will actually be a review of what the librarian said in class this week. So it's going to be very, very broad, not necessarily applying specifically to DAT or animation applications or anything like that. Rather, I want to review what she went over because we have a cursor now that's highlighted, so we can see where we're clicking, and also just to get a refresher on where she found all of these, or where she showed you that you could find all of these resources. All right. So step one is that she kept going up to quick links, which is at the top of the nv.edu page. And then she was always going to the library, which goes to a very specific part of the library. If you try to go through the main site, you won't get here. You'll get to the main page for the library. And then it was access databases was one place. And the other was research guides. And under research guides, digital arts technology, DAT 101. So thankfully, we only have one in our department. All right. And I'm going to go over some of these things briefly because we're going to have a part 2 to this video that goes over them specific to our field. But the first tab that it lands you on is really great because it can remind you of some of the very basic terms of copyright, right? So if copyright is meant to both protect you, the artist, from other people using your work, but it can also protect you, a remixer, in using other work fairly, this is a good resource. So public domain being things that you can use without really any asking for any rights, although you should always attribute the work to someone else if it was someone else's. Going over to the right hand side here, Creative Commons, we're going to go into a lot in part 2 because we use this in our class mostly, but it's a great sort of system for passing along sort of a bit freer rights than general copyright. And then fair use, which we'll also go into part 2. This is one way to look at it. We're going to have some very specific examples, but this is where you can find that slider bar that she mentioned, and also their standard definition of plagiarism. So this landing page is a good sort of refresher for everything. Under attributions and captions, which is where she went to for the difference between a caption and an attribution and a citation. So we have, let me bring this up so we can see it more clearly. There we go. So we have an attribution, which is just if you're in the middle of talking about something, you want to say, hey, there's a thing by a guy. And then a caption would be maybe under the picture itself, and it's a much more specific look. And because this is a painting, they're going into how big it is, what medium it is, that sort of thing. And also, when it comes to fine art, there's always this gifting thing that they have to talk about. But the last part is the MLA citation. So when you're working in a class that's not necessarily mine, but really any class, and they're saying you have to cite work, this is the very formal MLA formatted citation that they're talking about. So when you're for my class, I'm not as formal about it. I want attribution, and we'll go into specifics in part 2 of what I'm looking for. But most of your classes are probably going to be working with MLA, and so that's something you want to think about. And just a reminder, because she was correct when she said this, you need to credit yourself. So even if it's just as simple as your name and the name of the subject and when you took the picture, but whatever it is, you should always cite and attribute your own work to yourself, which includes when you hand stuff in to me and say, hey, this is mine, so that I know. All right. Next tab. These are just questions on copyright law of the United States. You could take entire years of law school on copyright law and still not understand all of it because there is so much. But it's still good to kind of understand some of these things, even if it does mean kind of giving yourself a quiz. One thing I will point out, the biggest one would be, in order to have copyright protection in the US, you must place the copyright symbol on your work. And you can actually ask this question in conjunction with, in order to have copyright protection, you need to submit it to the copyright place. And the answer to both of those is false. Your work is copyrighted to you as soon as you create it. There are ways to make it yours, to protect yourself from people stealing it, but it belongs to you as soon as you create it. So that's something to keep in mind as you're working on this. Other tabs that she looked at were, I believe, nope. MLA style, so that you could again, get formal citations. They have different ones here for images found on the internet. That's a big one that we're going to use in class a lot. Article, film, clip, image from somewhere else. So there's different examples here. They have a special one on performances because, as she said, the rights to a live performance have to be actually secured before you can do that. I will say that we don't have live performances in our class, but something to keep in mind is that when you are looking at a work, let's say a song that's in public domain, Happy Birthday. So the song Happy Birthday is in public domain, but if someone has performed it, that performance is now copyrighted. So performing music, the copyright's attached at a lot of different places. Websites for free images to use. This is a good start. We're actually on Blackboard. There's that also. We've got a set of links that are more specific to us, but these are good places to start for this. And a few more modern citations for things like YouTube and video games. So this sets of tabs, there's some very broad, very basic information. Back on the library site, if we were to go to access databases, so she was looking through a few different databases here. What's nice is that you guys can get access to some newspapers through the school, which is fantastic. I know she went to Artstore, and nope, I guess I can't get in right now because I'm not logged in. So we'll do that in 1 second. Okay, now that we're logged in, this is one of the places where she was searching for things. So she searched for the word elephant, and it came up with tons and tons of random stuff. And then you can click on it to get it. Now, one thing I don't know about Artstore is if everything here is public domain. This was potentially made long enough ago that it very well could be. If I scroll down, collection, okay. So she mentioned that you could get a citation and use this. However, if I scroll down here, it says rights. It belongs to these people for whatever reason. And it says Artstore has not screened or selected this image or cleared any rights to it. So while if you're in school, there's a lot of leeway in terms of using these images for, say, like a research paper or something. In terms of the DAT department and making things, there's less leeway there. Because the DAT department, you are creating stuff that will kind of follow you outside of school, that you might put up on YouTube, put up on an online portfolio. You really, within this department, should be using things that would say public domain. And I don't know that there's a way to search for that in Artstore. I don't see advanced search. And no. So there does not seem to be any good way to search for that on this particular thing. But I will say that in our Blackboard site, under support materials, there's several places that do sort of, I mean, you have to fix your searches here, but for example, Pixabay, and come on. So I'm going to search here for something, and I click here, and it says very, very clearly, CC0 Creative Commons, free for commercial use. So Pixabay is very, very upfront and clear about the fact that this is okay to use anywhere, which is why it's one of our favorite candidates. If you don't see this just very plainly, I would be cautious about using stuff. So again, with this, it's good for research and things like that, but there are limitations, especially depending on how you're using it. All right, so those are the databases that she was kind of looking at. And again, that you have to, I mean, with anything, even if I recommend it, you have to really look closely at stuff. But one thing I wanted to show you to review is that she was going over Google image searches. So we're going to look for, just kidding, spelled that wrong. We're going to look for an elephant, and then we're going to go to, let's see, advanced search. So you search for something, settings, advanced search. And you can either look for an exact phrase if there was an exact phrase you're looking for, or just any words. And a lot of different settings, but usage rights. So you can say free to use even commercially. That's the broadest one. Use, share, or modify even commercially. So if I search for that, get plenty of pictures. And you'll see that actually as I scroll over them, Pixabay is coming up a lot. And I'm seeing Wikipedia. But now, before you just, right click Save Image, what you really need to do is visit the website. And I wonder if there's a better way. View image. No, that's just an expanded version. Because what you really need to do, is that the picture? Yes. You need to find that picture, and you need to, you need to go to the actual source of where you're finding it. So in this case, Wikipedia, the actual site. And you can see here, it's a certain type of Creative Commons. Part 2 will go into which one it is specifically, but you can't click on it to see what it is. And all right, this one doesn't say commercial. But it does say Creative Commons, so you can use it in our class. So what I'm suggesting is that you cannot trust that everything in here is okay to use. Google does a good job. It doesn't do a bad job, but it's not always right. It's gotten better actually since I've started teaching this class over the last couple of years. So I just by the names of the sites alone, I'm sort of a little bit thinking a little bit stronger. Yeah, this one is only attribution, so this one's okay. So always double check, right? It takes only a second. You click on the image, you click visit, it goes to the site, and you can see where it is. So again, just making sure that you're double checking what Google's doing, because we only trusted so far. I would say the same, actually, I'd say even less so. One of the things we have up here is YouTube, which obviously everyone uses YouTube for everything all the time. And if I go to YouTube, let me see. And then, where's my search settings? Filter. There we go. I'm not even sure. Aha, okay, so Creative Commons. So once I go by filter and I search for Creative Commons, and it makes you think that it's going to do the same thing that the Google image search did, but maybe not. So I see that there's a few here by something called Baby Learn Color, and I click on that, and I'm going to pause it so we don't have to listen to it. And that seems to be an actual company that posts stuff on YouTube. And if I go to show more, which is where you go on YouTube for things, you can see it very clearly states Creative Commons Attribution License, reuse allowed. And there's two things that make this seem like it's suitable for us. One, it actually says it right here under the license. But the other thing is that this seems to be something that they made. So if I click on Baby Learn Color, I'm going to go to a site, stop that, that this is them. This is the stuff that they make. So that's okay. But what can sometimes happen, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to find a copy of anything. Let me see here. So I'm going to search for something on purpose that is obviously owned by someone else, and I'm going to click on filter and say Creative Commons. And yet somehow I still come up with stuff related to Star Wars. So if I come over here, oh sorry, I have to let this play in order to commercials. There we go. Okay, so this is clearly someone's like spoof remix of Knights of the Old Republic. And if we come here, it says Creative Commons Attribution License. But that doesn't necessarily mean this is okay. One of the things you would have to look at is what they're doing, Best Friends Play, which seems to be a whole thing you can see down here, is what they're doing okay in the first place. And I am making no judgment call as to whether it is or not, but if it is fair use, if what they're doing is satirical enough and a small enough portion of the Star Wars universe, then yes, this video would fall under Creative Commons and you could use as you see fit under this license. However, if it's not, if what they're doing is too close to Star Wars to be considered fair use, then the fact that they have labeled it Creative Commons would not protect you at all. Personally, I think this is okay, but it's the problem is finding is walking that line. This is almost the wrong thing to search for because Disney is sort of very aggressive in taking down material. But if you find, here we go. This is an audiobook that is released by Disney. It's the audio version of a book they have written, and I can tell you in no uncertain terms is it under Creative Commons license. I know this for a fact. The book Darth Plagueis is owned by Lucasfilm, and they sell it in a bookstore, and it is definitely copywritten. So one of the things you have to navigate as you're going through this is, yes, I see this here. That doesn't mean it's okay. Um, Whether this is the actual audiobook that they sell or someone else's reading of the book, it's still a no-go, right? And you can see they put all of it up here. It's under Coleman Henner. I don't even know who that is. Yeah, it looks like he does this. I don't think these are okay for Creative Commons. I really don't. It seems like it's either a guy who posts the audiobooks or he reads them himself. Either way, this is not legit. This is not the page of a voice actor who voices books. This is not related to Lucasfilm or Disney at all. You can tell right off the bat because it would say he is the guy that reads the things, and this is not legit. So yes, even though he says they're Creative Commons, they're not. This is skirting copyright law, and they're getting away with it because they don't go after audiobooks as much. So, again, just being careful, looking after yourself, making sure you're going to a source, and then using your best judgment. If it seems too good to be true, it kind of sort of is sometimes. All right, so there endeth part one of our copyright issue, the review of what was gone over by the librarian. And again, you can always go to them for help with the more general, related to all of your other classes, information in terms of citations and copyright and things like that.